The Indian Institute of Welding was incorporated on 22nd April 1966 as a limited company under the Companies Act 1956. This institute is established with a mission to be the premier professional institute in India for the advancement of welding, science and technology and related activities. IW India has been involved in human resources development in welding in India by carrying out training and certification of engineers and welders in line with international standards, technology diffusion to the industry and to the welding community, encouraging research and development in welding, and establishing international standards of quality for the Indian fabrication industry. IW India's National Welding Training and Certification Scheme, NWTCS, has been prepared to meet the demand of industry for welders trained and certified to a level of competency commensurate with the requirements of any of the welder qualifications and certification standards or codes. Directorate General of Employment and Training, Government of India, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship has empaneled IW India as an assessing body for modular employment skills courses under Skill Development Initiative scheme for all the courses under fabrication sectors in all states and union territories in India. IW India is an authorized national body for training and certification of welding professionals by the International Institute of Welding, such as IWE, IWT, and IWS, IWP. IW India has obtained accreditation as authorized national body for company certification, ANBCC, from the International Institute of Welding through its International Authorization Board for exclusive rights within India to operate its manufacturer certification scheme, MCS, for certification of companies for compliance for the requirements of ISO 3834. And regarding IW India Bengaluru branch, which is hosting this program, I would like to inform few words about IW India Bengaluru branch, which is one of the older and most vibrant branches of IW India, with over a membership of 10 corporates and over 150 welding related professionals. The branch is tirelessly working towards the development of welding technology and in and around Bengaluru. The branch activities include organizing training courses for welders and welding engineers and providing consultancy to various industries to improve the quality of products and services. With this, I would like to, open the floor for the further technical talk by the resource person. And thank you all for giving overwhelming response. We reached already 100 people, whatever the bandwidth is available for us. But we are recording this session, and any of you are missing this program, I request you, we will be shortly uploading to the YouTube, and you are not going to miss this session anyway. And I request you inform to your colleagues also to view this, because we have a bandwidth of 100 people, which we already reached. Thank you all once again for giving overwhelming response for this program.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi Kumar. Now I would like to introduce the today's speaker, Dr. Shamant.
Someone screen sharing. Please don't screen share. Thank you.
Dr. Shamant, we has obtained his doctoral degree from Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, and he is done his doctoral degree in NIT Cambridge, and currently working as associate professor in School of Mechanical Engineering from Reva University. He has teaching experience of 3 years and research experience of 4.5 years. He has published in 14 journal papers and 1 research grant of 34.31 lakhs funded by the Department of Science and Technology under Young Scientist Scheme in the year 2020. His areas of interest are physical metallurgy, additive manufacturing, powder metallurgy, heat treatment, and he is a life member of Tribological Society of India, TSI, life member in Indian Society for Systems of Science and Engineering. I request Dr. You can go ahead with your presentation.
Dr. Shamant, you can just share your screen. I will switch off my screen sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, you can share, sir. Dr. Shaman, you can share.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sharing, sir.
Yeah.
Am I audible, sir?
One second. I request all of you to please mute your audio, unless otherwise you want. So, okay, sir, you can continue, Dr. Shaman. Dr. Shaman?
Yeah, am I audible, sir, now?
Yeah, perfectly. You can start, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction, sir, Shukumar, sir. And I welcome all the delegates of Indian Institute of Welding Bangalore chapter for this technical talk on physical metallurgy of stainless steels. I'll be focusing on physical metallurgy of austenitic stainless steels for today's technical talk. And coming to the outline of my presentation, I'll be telling briefly about the history, properties, and applications of stainless steels and how the stainless steels is being manufactured and the basics of stainless steels and their classification. And I'll be briefing about the nitrogen effects, passivation, and localized corrosion that occurs in austenitic stainless steels. And also I'll be briefing about the mechanical properties and weldability of austenitic stainless steels. Coming to the history, in steel family, we have three types of steels. That is carbon steels, stainless steels, and low alloy steels. And a scientist named Harry Burley, okay, he was the one who invented stainless steels in the year 1915. Actually, austenitic stainless steel was invented in the year 1915. Coming to the developments in iron alloy, that is prehistoric iron, which is evident in Delhi's iron pillar from say around 400 AD, which consisted of iron, carbon, phosphorus, sulfur, and manganese alloy. Okay, and coming to further development of iron alloy, iron carbon steels were developed. After that, alloy steels were developed in 18th century, and the first patent was made in 1872 for high carbon and high chromium alloy steel. And also later in 1875, low carbon and high chromium steels were developed by Brewstein. And the aluminothermic reduction, that is reduction of carbon in stainless steels, was done in the year 1895 by the scientist called Goldsmith. Because of this invention, that led to the breakthrough of reducing the carbon content in stainless steel. And later, further developments were done by adding ternary alloys, that is iron, nickel, and chromium alloys were developed by Goulet in 1904 to 1906. And later, molybdenum with increasing the chromium content about 10.5, and its effects was investigated by Monarch and Broch. And later in 1913, the first ever stainless steel was invented by Barry Harley, as I told you. And austenitic stainless steel was invented in the year 1915 by adding 15 to 40% of carbon by the scientist named B. Strauss. Okay, he invented the stainless steels with the composition of carbon less than 1% and nickel less than 20% and chromium around 15 to 40%. This is the brief history of steels. And why steels are called stainless? We need to know that because steels will have a passive layer. Okay, the presence of passive film, which is made up of chromium oxide, makes it stainless. It makes it rust free because of the passive film, which is made up of chromium oxide. And chromium content, which is less than 10.5%, is not possible to have a passive film. It should have more than 10.5%. In any steels, when you have chromium content above 10.5%, we can form a passive layer. I'll explain you later what is this passive film in a passivation process. And the corrosion resistance and other useful properties will be enhanced by chromium content by adding the chromium content in steels, and in turn by adding other alloying elements like molybdenum, nickel, and nitrogen will also enhance the corrosion resistance and mechanical properties of stainless steels. And we can see an article over here in 1915 when the stainless steels were involved. According to the author here, he has claimed that a non-rusting, unsustainable, untarishable stainless steel was founded, which did not require any polish also. This was an article published in New York Times in 1915 regarding stainless steels. And coming to the benefits of stainless steel, as we all know, stainless steels are very good corrosion resistance, and it is having very good high and low temperature properties, hygienic and aesthetic appearance, and it is very easy to fabrication also. It is a good formable material, and toughness of the stainless steel is also very good, and impact resistance is also very good, and cost and life cycle cost is also very good when coming to the fatigue property of stainless steel. It is having very good creep and fatigue properties also. And nowadays we can see everywhere, right from construction or even coins, automobiles, and even in our utensils also we can see lips. Everywhere we can see stainless steels. Okay, it's having a lot of application. We right from marine application, and we have it in desalination plants, petrochemical industries, oil and pulp industries. Wherever we require non-corrosive, wherever the environment is corrosive, we usually prefer the stainless steels, right? And coming to the classification of stainless steels, there are many, 4 types, or usually we have 5 types of stainless steel. That is, first thing is ferritic stainless steels, and the next one is martensitic stainless steels, and next you have austenitic stainless steels, precipitation hardening stainless steels, and duplex stainless steels. Okay, today's focus will be
screen not visible, please.
Is
Yes.
it visible now?
Sorry?
Is the screen visible now?
Yeah, the classification of stainless steel not visible.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I was talking in general. Yeah.
Now it is in
Coming to
manufacturing of stainless steel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go ahead, Dr. Shamant.
You can go ahead.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Coming to the manufacturing of stainless steels, in general, we use electric arc furnace in order to cast the stainless steel. The charge will be melted by using electric arc stainless steel, and the scrap stainless steel also can be used as a metal charge. And melting occurs around 1500 degrees centigrade. And later, after melting, it will be decarbonized. Okay, that's the main process in stainless steel. We have to remove all the carbon content present in it. Why we have to remove the carbon content, I'll explain you later. Once you melt the charge from your electric arc furnace, that will be transferred to the decarbonization vessel, where you are going to blow with oxygen, oxygen, argon, and nitrogen gas in order to reduce the carbon content. You know, why you have to reduce the carbon content is because of the sensitization problem which will occur in stainless steel. That's why we have to reduce the amount of carbon, and the maximum amount of carbon is limited to 0.03% in case of austenitic stainless steel. And addition of following elements will be done in this stage in order to compensate the effect of carbon. And after the decarbonization, next the solidification. Actually, we do the hot rolling process, and then we cut the metal samples. In case of continuous casting, we do this. And in case of if you require any permanent mold casting also, the process can be simplified as further. And coming to this is of stainless steel, it's because of the allotropic nature of iron. Allotropic nature is nothing but iron has the capability to change its structure when heated at different temperature. It changes its crystal structure. Say it exists as FCC. When you heat it above 1390 degree, it exists in delta farad form with carbon. And if it is heated in the range of 910 to 1390, then it exists in the form of austenite with carbon. Okay, this is the section where we deal with stainless steels. We usually have a FCC structure which is non-magnetic. Stainless steels usually come under this category, that is FCC structures. And when you heat, when it heat below 900 degrees centigrade, it exists in the form of alpha ferrite. Okay, our focus area is in this region, that is 1000 to 1300 degrees centigrade, 1400 degrees centigrade is the range of range that is required to produce our austenitic stainless steels. And coming to the classification, as I told you, there are different the austenitic stainless steels, ferritic stainless steels, martensitic stainless steel, precipitation hardening stainless steels, and duplex stainless. And the percentages that I've disclosed here about the market share in the international market. Usually, we have 60 to 70% of the market share of austenitic stainless steel in the world market. And next comes the ferritic stainless steels. It is having the market share of 20 to 25%. And coming to the martensitic stainless steels, we have the market share of 7%. And coming to the precipitation hardening stainless steels, the market share is around 2%. And duplex steel is having a market share of 1%. Since it is a newly developed alloy, the market share of duplex alloy is on the lower side. It is a recently developed alloy. And coming to the phase diagram, usually austenitic stainless steels have a ternary phase diagram, which is difficult to understand in one session. I'll be briefing how we get the structure by using this ternary phase diagram. By maintaining 18% of chromium and 8% of nickel, we can stabilize the austenitic phase in order to get the austenitic, which is very important to enhance the corrosion resistance and toughness. If you had the chromium between 12 to 15%, then you get the martensitic stainless steel. Okay, this stainless steel is this type of phase is very helpful in enhancing the strength and toughness property. If you have the martensitic phase in your structure, then it is hardenable. It is heat treatable also. You can harden it. Okay, and coming to the ferritic stainless steels, when you maintain carbon less than 0.1% and the chromium more than 18%, and no nickel, you can arrive at ferritic structure. Okay, in austenitic stainless steels also, you will have 5 to 10% of the ferritic structures involved in it. Okay, 90% will be austenitic phase and 10% will be your ferritic phase. In case of ferritic stainless steels, you will have 90% of your structure made up of ferrite. And coming to the properties of various stainless steels, coming to the material austenitic, the most commonly used grades are 304 and 316 grades. It is the main advantage of austenitic stainless steel is it is widely used, and the cost of fabrication is very less, and it is having good corrosion resistance. It's a main advantage of austenitic stainless steel. And the disadvantage is it is having limited work hardening property and the poor stress corrosion resistance. Okay, this is the main disadvantage of austenitic stainless steels. And coming to ferritic stainless steels, the grades are 410, 430, and 446. These are the commonly used ferritic grade steels. Coming to the advantage of this is it is low in cost when compared to austenitic stainless steel. Ferritic stainless steel is very less in cost, and it is having moderate corrosion resistance. Okay, it is having very mild corrosion resistance. And coming to the limited disadvantages, it is having limited corrosion resistance. It is not having corrosion resistance as high as austenitic stainless steels. And the strength and weldability of ferritic stainless steel is also good, but it is not as good as austenitic stainless steel. Okay, and coming to the martensitic stainless steels, the commonly used grades are 420 and 431. And this, coming to the advantages of martensitic stainless steel, it is heat treatable. Okay, you can harden it by heat treating, and it is having a very poor corrosion resistance and very poor weldability also. The martensitic stainless steels are having very poor corrosion resistance and very poor weldability. And coming to the newly developed duplex alloy steel, here it is having a very good localized corrosion resistance. That is resistance to pitting and crevice corrosion is very good in case of duplex stainless steels. and it is having good mechanical properties also. When compared to austenitic stainless steels, the mechanical property of duplex stainless steels is very good, and the corrosion resistance also is very good. The only limitation of this duplex stainless steel is its limited operating service temperature. Austenitic stainless steel's working temperature is around 800 to 800 degree. Say the operating or service temperature of austenitic stainless steel is 800 degree, whereas in case of duplex steels, it is limited to 300 degree. Above 300 degree, we cannot rely on duplex stainless steel because there are various precipitation forming above 300 degrees centigrade in duplex stainless steel. Hence, this is the major limitation which is limiting the duplex stainless steels over austenitic stainless steel. Comparing to other properties, comparing the corrosion resistance, it is having very good corrosion resistance because of enhanced chromium content in it. And next we have this precipitation hardening steels, where the commonly used grade is 17.4 pH. We usually this is the commonly used pH hardened pH steel, and it is hardenable by heat treatment. The main advantage of this precipitation hardening steel is it can be hardened by heat treatment, and it is having a moderate corrosion resistance. And it is also the major limitation is it is having limited weldability, and availability is also very limited. Okay, this is the property of stainless steel. And coming to the design parameters of austenitic stainless steel, alloying element is the first part in designing the any alloy or any stainless steels. Alloying element is the first important criteria that we have to look into it. I'll be discussing in detail about the effect of alloying element. And grain size. Grain size engineering is also very important in defining the corrosion and the mechanical properties. And thermomechanical heat treatment. That is, heat treatment is also very important in designing a stainless steel for a particular application. And stability at service conditions also has to be checked before using it in working condition. And weldability of alloy that is being designed should also be checked thoroughly. And life assessment strategies like fatigue and creep also should be very good before choosing the before designing the alloy. Okay, coming to the effect of alloying element, the first thing is carbon. Okay, carbon is usually present in all the metal, the disperous metals, and usually carbon is added around 0.0 to 0.5%. 8% of carbon is present in austenitic stainless steel, and carbon is, as we all know, it is a non-metallic element. As you can see in this image, this is a graphite flake. Okay, it is taken by mines of Paris. Okay, image courtesy by Paris mines. And carbon is always present in, as I told you, it will be always present in the metallic alloys in all grades of stainless steels and heat resistant steels. You usually have carbon, but in case of austenitic, ferritic, and duplex stainless steels, the maximum amount of carbon is limited to 0.05%. Sorry, 0.01%. Okay, and coming to austenitic stainless steels, you can find carbon in the range of 0.0 to 0.058%. You know, and carbon is not essential in stainless steel because of sensitization problem. Okay, because if you have more carbon in your alloy, what happens is it extracts all the chromium content in it to form the chromium carbide precipitates near the grain boundaries. Okay, usually it usually forms chromium carbide precipitate near the grain boundaries. Hence, carbon is completely eliminated from stainless steels. If you have this sensitization problem, then you will have decrease in corrosion resistant property. Okay, hence carbon is avoided in stainless steels. The amount of carbon will be very less in stainless steels. Coming to the chromium content, chromium is a very important alloying element in stainless steel. You can see the image of chromite ore in which is again taken from the Paris mines. The chromium content in austenitic stainless steel is present around 16 to 18%. Okay, coming to the metallurgical application of chromium, Here, about 85% of chromite mine is used in metallurgy, namely in stainless steels or low alloy steels, high strength steels, tool steels, and high performance alloy steels. Okay, because due to its high resistance to uh, corrosion, this is a very important alloying element in stainless steels. Yeah, the properties or the one way that we can distinguish stainless steels is by the amount of chromium content in it. Okay, usually the chromium content present in it will give us a protective layer called passive layer. Okay, that is which is usually protecting the stainless steels from corrosion or any other thing. The high degree of reactivity of the chromium. Usually, chromium is having high degree of reactivity. It is the base. This is on this basis. Okay, since chromium is having high degree of reactivity, on this basis, the effectiveness of chromium as an alloying element in stainless steel is very important. The resistance, sorry, the resistance of these metallic alloys to chemical effects of corrosive agents is determined by the ability to protect themselves through the formation of adherent and insoluble film. That is, as I told you, you will have a adherent film or insoluble film, that is chromium oxide layer will be present. That process you usually call it as passivation process. Okay, stainless steels is usually free from contaminants. Once when your chromium atom reacts with oxygen, when you subject it to atmosphere, you will have a thin oxide layer formed on the surface of the steel, and that surface layer, whatever that you are going to get during passivation process, will be in the nano level. Okay, the size of the passive layer will be in the nano level. It will be around 0.1 to 2 nanometers. Okay, it is the corrosion resistance of any steel material depends upon this passive layer thickness. Okay, because it will be providing resistance to crevice or pitting corrosion. This passive layer will be providing the resistance to crevice and pitting corrosion, and hence this chromium content plays a vital role in passivation process, that is providing a passive layer on the surface of the steel. And next important alloying element that we find in austenitic stainless steel is nickel. It is the addition of nickel that enables stainless steel to become such a versatile alloy. It is a very important alloying element. Usually you have 10 to 14% of nickel content in austenitic stainless steel, which enables it to have good strength and corrosion resistance. Okay, and it also inhibits good formability. That is, we can the machinability property of austenitic stainless steel is inhibited by addition of nickel alloy, and it is a strong austenitic stabilizer. Okay, in austenitic stainless steel, it is a major austenitic stabilizer. And coming to the molybdenum usually you have around 2 to 4% of the weight percent of molybdenum present in austenitic stainless steel, and it is molybdenum is usually having a very high melting point. Okay, it is because of this property, high melting point, it makes it important for giving strength to the steel and other metallic alloys. It is because of the presence of this molybdenum we get good strength properties, and also it also helps in providing good corrosion resistant property also. And molybdenum helps in improving the resistance to pitting chloride environment and crevice corrosion environment also. It also gives very good resistance to crevice and pitting corrosion, and it helps in reducing the oxidizing effect. Okay, molybdenum will also help in reducing the intensity of oxidizing effect, which is very much essential to ensure the passivity and decrease the tendency of previously formed passive films to break down. Okay, this molybdenum will helps to have a strong passive film which cannot be break down easily. If you have molybdenum content in your stainless steel, then the passive layer will also be very strong. And the next important alloying element is nitrogen. Nitrogen is an interstitial element, as we all know. It is an interstitial element in steel. And sorry, because the size of the nitrogen atom is so small than the size of the chromium or nickel or iron, it is very small. The atomic size of nitrogen is very small. Hence, it is an interstitial atom which can enter into these alloys. Okay. Usually, the solubility of nitrogen is very good in austenitic phase than in chloride phase. The solubility of nitrogen in austenitic phase is around 2.4%, whereas the solubility of nitrogen in chloritic phase is only 0.1% at 1100 degrees centigrade. Hence, nitrogen is having good austenite forming capability. Okay, nitrogen is also having a major influence in precipitation of intermetallic compounds like carbides, nitrates, and carbonitrates. Instead of forming chromium carbide, if we get chromium nitrate, then the amount of sensitization that is happening in the austenitic stainless steel will be reduced. Hence, nitrogen is playing a very vital role in alloying element. It increases the resistance to localized corrosion like pitting or intergranular corrosions, and this is due to the precipitation of chromium nitrate instead of chromium carbide. Okay, as I told you, precipitation of chromium nitrate is very good than precipitation of chromium carbide, since chromium carbide gives the sensitization problem. It is an undesirable phase in any austenitic stainless steel. Okay, chromium carbide. If you have nitrogen content present in it, you can eliminate this chromium carbide precipitation. And coming to the role of alloying element in austenitic stainless steel, the commonly found alloying element is 304. If you reduce the carbon content in 304 SS, then you can get this 304L SS. L is nothing but lowering of carbon content, lowered carbon content when compared to 304 stainless steel. Here you will have reduced carbon content, which increases the resistance to sensitization. And if you had molybdenum content, if you increase molybdenum content for the 304 composition, then you can have very good resistance to creep and corrosion. And if you have higher chromium and nickel, then you get 310 SS, which is having high temperature application. And if you reduce nitrogen and add manganese and if you reduce nickel and if you add manganese and nitrogen, then you get 310, which is 301 stainless steel, which is used in general application, and the cost of the 301 stainless steel is also very less. And if you had other alloying elements like nickel and niobium, you get 321 SS and 347 SS. It is having very good resistance for intergranular corrosion resistance. And if you had molybdenum and nickel to 304 alloy, then you can get 904L grade, which is having good resistance to stress corrosion cracking and scaling. These are some of the commonly used grades in austenitic stainless steels. If you reduce the carbon, if you are having lower carbon, then you get 304. If you are having more alloying element of molybdenum, then you will have 316 SS. And if you are having higher chromium and nickel when compared to 304, you will have 310 SS. If you have reduced nickel and increased nitrogen, then you can get 301 SS. If you had titanium and niobium into your iron, chromium, and nickel alloying element, then you get 321 SS and 347 SS. And if you are having high molybdenum and nickel content, then you can get 904L SS, which is having very good resistance to stress corrosion cracking and scaling. And the next important austenitic stainless steel we have is super austenitic stainless steel. Okay, it is having just microstructure similar to the austenitic alloy, but the alloying element is enhanced in the super austenitic stainless steel, such as alloying elements such as chromium, nickel, molybdenum, copper, and nitrogen will be enhanced in order to get superior strength and corrosion resistance. The cost of the super austenitic stainless steels will also be on the higher side. You can see the alloying element that you can add. See, around nickel will be added around 23 to 25%, whereas in conventional 316 ASS, the nickel is limited to 10%, whereas in super austenitic stainless steel, the nickel content will be around 23 to 25%. And the chromium content also is enhanced, whereas in commonly used 316 alloy, you will have around 18% of chromium. Here you will have 22% of chromium. And the molybdenum also is increased in super or austenitic stainless steel. Here you are adding around 6 to 7% of molybdenum, whereas in conventional 316 alloy, it will be around 3 to 4% of molybdenum present. And you will have almost nil carbon in super austenitic stainless steel. The maximum amount that you can get will be around 0.03%, and nitrogen will be around 0.18 to 0.25%. In case of 316, you will have nitrogen content around 0.15%, and the rest you can see the rest are nil. If you have any specific application in which is required in terms of toughness, then you add some amount of manganese also. Okay. And typical applications of super austenitic stainless steel is in pulp bleaching equipment and piping, seawater exchanges, and chemical process tanks, pipelines, brewery equipments, reverse osmosis desalination equipment and pumps. You can use this super austenitic stainless steel, and it is also being used in offshore oil gas process systems and food processing equipment also it is used, and in food processing equipment also it is used, and it is also used in pharmaceutical process pipelines and vessels. In where you need superior corrosion resistance and strength property, you use this super austenitic stainless steels. As I told you, passive role of passive film is very important in stainless steel. Here a thin other and self-healing passive film offer protects against allied ions by quickly forming passive ion. This is a self-healing passive film which provides us surface from the surface damage and localized corrosion. Okay, this passive film will helps in preventing minor surface damage, and it greatly helps in increasing the localized corrosion resistance. Because however the passive film will be first corroded, and then the corrosion will enter into our base metal. Okay, however localized damage is caused due to the film by chloride ions at weak sites. Okay, this localized corrosion is usually found in the weak sites of the passive ion. And localized corrosion like pitting and crevice corrosion, intercranial corrosion, stress corrosion, cracking, corrosion fatigue, etc. are caused due to the destruction of passive film. In ASS, in order to have damages due to corrosion and fatigue, first you have to overcome this passive layer. Okay, this passive film should be destroyed first in order to damage the base material. After destruction of this passive film only, the failure of our SS will occur. Okay, in industrial services. And coming to the pitting corrosion here, the passive film is damaged by chloride ions. Usually the chloride ions, usually the stainless steels will be subjected to corrosive environment. Wherever you have aggressive environment, you use this corrosive stainless steels, right? The passive film, whatever that is generated in the austenitic stainless steels, will be damaged by the chloride ions at local defects, and pitting is initiated, and it grows by autocatalytic mechanism, leading to the growth of pits. Okay, due to the autocatalytic mechanism, your pits will grow. Okay, and how to improve this pitting corrosion is by adding molybdenum, nickel, and nitrogen elements. Okay, if you have more amount of molybdenum, nitrogen, and the nickel element in your alloy system, then the pitting corrosion kinetics will be reduced. Okay, and you can also do some surface treatment, say like laser melting or alloying on the surface can be done in order to reduce this pitting. And you can also add inhibitor to the corrosive medium in order to reduce the pitting corrosion. You can also add inhibitor to the corrosion medium in order to reduce the pitting corrosion. And coming to one of the case study here, I have taken cryogenic condenser in chemical industry. You can see here this is the same image of cryogenic condenser where it has undergone pitting corrosion. This was occurred mainly because of high chlorine content in water. The usually alloy was designed to designed to withstand the corrosion resistance that takes place due to methanol, and it was designed to overcome the corrosion resistance which occurs due to methanol. Okay, and here the pitting corrosion was found because of the high chlorine content in the water. Okay, they had that 70% of methanol brine solution with 30% of water. The water that they used in their condenser was having high chlorine content, which led to this pitting corrosion. The main reason for failure was ingress ordinary water with high chloride content. Okay, because of high chlorine content in the water, the condenser which was designed for giving service up to 5 to 10 years was failed within 6 months. Okay, hence care has to be taken while designing the alloying while selecting the alloying elements in order to get bit good corrosion or pitting corrosion resistance. And coming to the intergranular corrosion, it mainly occurs because of the sensitization. Formation of this intergranular corrosion, it is enhanced mainly because of the sensitization process. The formation of chromium-rich carbides at the grain boundaries during slow heating or cooling of austenitic stainless steels between 400 to 750 degrees centigrades leads to the development of chromium depleted zone. That is nothing but a sensitized layer along the grain boundaries, which is known as sensitization. Okay, this intergranular corrosion mainly occurs because of the sensitization. Okay, any sensitized microstructure will undergo selective localized corrosion. Okay, if you have a sensitized layer, or if you have a sensitized structure in your microstructure, it tends to have intergranular corrosion in austenitic stainless steels. And coming to the benefits of nitrogen, there is a lot of benefits if you add nitrogen into your alloying element. Okay, increasing the nitrogen content increases the breakdown potential. Okay, it increases the corrosion resistance. That is, you can see over here in this figure, in this graph, they have tried with 0.15% of nitrogen, 0.084% of nitrogen, 0.198% of nitrogen, and 0.556 nitrogen content, where the breakdown potential is very high in when you use higher amounts of nitrogen. Okay, if you have high breakdown potential, then your pitting corrosion resistance will be very high. Okay, that's what they have stated here. If you increase the nitrogen content, the breakdown potential and enhanced breakdown potential will be increased, which will in turn enhance the resistance to pitting and crevice corrosion resistance by stabilizing the passive film. Okay, this passive film will be stabilized by nitrogen. If you add more nitrogen into your alloy, then you will have a strong passive film that cannot be corroded easily. Usually, if you have higher nitrogen content, you can form NH4 ions, which is having increased pH at the pit site. Okay, which will favor the formation of nitrate compounds and provide local inhibition for the growth of pits. Hence, nitrogen is very important alloying element in stainless steel. And as you, this is one more case study where role of nitrogen is very important in stress corrosion cracking. You can see in this figure, they have tried with 3 different types of stainless steels where nitrogen content is different. They have tried with the 304L, 316SS, and 316LNSS. Okay, you can see the crack growth rate is minimal in 316LN, whereas the crack growth rate is very high in case of 304SS, and the crack growth rate is on the middle is bit moderate in 316L. Increasing the nitrogen content improves the resistance to stress corrosion cracking in austenitic stainless steels in chloride medium. Okay, If you have increased the nitrogen content, you will have very good resistance to stress corrosion cracking. And also you can increase the stability of passive film against the damage. You can have the favorable microstructure that you can get in order to have good stress corrosion cracking resistance if you have higher nitrogen content in your austenitic stainless steels. And coming to the intergranular corrosion, here you can see the TTT diagram, that is time, temperature, and transformation diagram for 0% cold work, 5% cold work, and 10% cold work sample here. The carbon and nitrogen contents have been taken here. The here one indicates 0.054% carbon and 0.053% carbon, that is 316 alloy. In 316 alloy, they have designed for different amounts of carbon and nitrogen. For second alloy, they have chosen with the 0.043% of carbon and 0.075% of nitrogen. And for third alloy, they have chosen with the 0.03% of carbon and 0.086% of nitrogen over here. And they have studied the time transformation curves for 0% cold work, 5% cold work, and 10% cold work. And they found cold working up to 15% reduces the time to initiate sensitization. Okay, cold working up, they found that cold working up to 15% reduces the time to sensitization. Okay, hence we have to you can cold work the ASS sample, which in turn reduces the time to initiate the sensitization. And reduction in carbon and addition of nitrogen increases the transformation time. Okay, if you increase the nitrogen content and if you reduce the nitrogen content, then you can increase the transformation time. That is, recrystallization time can be increased, and nitrogen decreases M23 and C6 precipitation kinetics, and thereby the tendency of sensitization also will be reduced. Okay, the carbide precipitations will be reduced if you add nitrogen, if you decrease the nitrogen content. Okay, and thereby the tendency for sensitization also will be decreased if you decrease the nitrogen content over here. Increasing nitrogen content improves the resistance to intergranular corrosion of austenitic stainless steels, and delaying, it also helps in delaying carbide formation. Okay, it increases the stability of passive films, and the reason for improved intergranular corrosion resistance is by addition of this nitrogen atom. Okay, nitrogen is very important alloying element for enhancing the corrosion resistance of the austenitic stainless steels. Coming to the grain boundary engineering, here if you have uniform grain boundaries, you can see, as you can see in this image, if you have uniform grain boundaries, then the sensitization time required is 200 hours. Okay, if you have a non-uniform grain boundaries, the sensitization time required is more than 200 hours. Hence, while designing an alloy to have good corrosion resistance, we should have non-uniform grain size. If you have uniform grain size, then the tendency for sensitization will be more. Okay, they have taken two alloy with the say they have chosen intermediate warm working temperature, annealing during rolling process. They got uniform. They engineered alloy to have uniform grain size, and with the same working condition, they engineered for non-uniform grain size by selecting the proper temperatures. Grain boundary engineering thus is very important to minimize the sensitization problem. Okay, the percentage of coincidence size site lattice, that is, we usually call it as CSL, coincidence site lattice, will be increased by 70% in alloy B. Okay, CSL will be increased by 75% in alloy B, whereas the time sensitization also increased by 10%. If you have non-uniform grain boundaries, then the time for sensitization required is also increased by 10%. Okay, and sensitization resistance increases with the increase in low angle coherent boundaries. The low angle coherent boundaries will also help in increasing the sensitization time. And the next important problem that we are associated with austenitic stainless steel is biocorrosion. Okay, that is commonly called as MIC, that is microbiologically influenced corrosion, because of the bacteria or because of the atmospheric conditions where these austenitic stainless steels are being used. They usually tend to have biocorrosion on them. Okay, here you can see some of the uh, corrosion that has happened due to Gallonia bacteria. You can see here biofilm formed because of the Gallonella bacteria. And the process how it occurs is when usually we are subjecting it to highly aggressive environment. Usually the applications of austenitic stainless steels is in aggressive environment where you have a lot of carbohydrates present in it. Usually in food processing industries and some other industries, you will have a lot of bacteria influencing the corrosion attack, that you call it as micro corrosion. Okay, you will have bacteria doing the immobilization in the passive film. Okay, bacteria will form a biofilm over the passive film, which in turn will have crevice attack on the sample. Okay, so you can see these are some of the examples where we see biocorrosion. Here you can see biocorrosion on the SS weld also because of the Gallonella mold present. This is a main bacteria which causes corrosion in our welds also, SS welds. Gallonella is most commonly found bacteria which will induce MIC, that is microbiologically influenced corrosion on SS. Okay, this in turn, this bacteria in turn will destroy the passive film, whichever that we induce during the passivation process, that will be attacked by the bacteria over a time, and then it will induce the biocorrosion, that is the pitting or crevice corrosion will be initiated because of the bacteria. Hence, we can improve this biocorrosion by surface treating the samples. Okay, that can be improved by surface treating. This is one of the most commonly found problem in industries due to the presence of microbes, adequate nutrients, and corrosive byproducts. This biocorrosion is a main problem that is encountered in industries, especially in food processing industries. Coming to the mechanical properties of austenitic stainless steels, usually we have tensile strength of around 480 to 600 MPa of yield strength, tensile strength. Okay, as you can see in this stress strain curve, austenitic stainless steel is having a good ductility over here. Okay, coming to the strength part, usually our martensitic stainless steel is having very good strength, whereas coming to the formability or ductility, austenitic stainless steel is having good ductility part. Okay, usually it has a yield strength over around 300 and tensile strength around 580 to 600, and it again depends upon the alloying elements. The percentage of elongation and the strength depends upon the alloying elements again. If you have more amounts of molybdenum, then you're having good tensile strength. If you are having lesser amount of molybdenum, then the tensile strength will be less. Okay, and you can also add manganese into your alloying element in order to increase the strength properties. And you can see in this diagram, you can see the increasing corrosion resistance versus increasing strength for these are the various grades available for ASS. Type 316 is having very good corrosion resistance, whereas you can see here 440, which is usually ferritic type. It's having good strength, but whereas the corrosion resistant property is very less. If you require corrosion resistance property, then you have to compromise with the strength. Okay, and if these are the various available steels that can be customized also. Okay, 3450 is a customized stainless steels where you can have good corrosion resistance and strength property also. Okay, 465 is also a customized steel, and 475, 455. These are some of the customized steels which can have very good strength and corrosion properties also. Coming to the operation service temperatures for stainless steel, the operating conditions for stainless steels for ASS is around 925 to 1150 degrees centigrade. It is a continuous service temperature of austenitic stainless steel. It is because of this property our austenitic stainless steel is having very good applications, because the continuous service operating temperature is very good in case of austenitic stainless steel. As you can see here, it is around 900 to 1100 degrees centigrade, and the thermal cycling service temperature is around 870 to 1035 degrees centigrade. It is also very good. Okay, the service temperature in which austenitic stainless steels can be worked is very high when compared to any other stainless steels. Okay, in case of martensitic stainless steel, it is around 815 to 735, whereas in case of ferritic stainless steel, it is around 870. Okay, in case of duplex, it is around only 300. Okay, duplex alloy is mainly designed to replace austenitic stainless steel. The major limitation is this continuous service temperature. Okay, here they are finding it very difficult to replace austenitic stainless steel with respect to this application. From duplex alloy is facing major problem in this area because of its limited continuous service temperature. Austenitic stainless steel is still being widely used. Coming to the weldability of austenitic stainless steel, as we all know, austenitic stainless steel is readily weldable material, but however, it results in a heterogeneous microstructure. Okay, our austenitic stainless steels will result in heterogeneous microstructure. The main problems encountered during welding is hot cracking and sensitization at the heat affected zone. These are the two main problems that we encountered during welding of austenitic stainless steels. And in order to avoid weld imperfection, okay, although austenitic stainless steels are readily easily weldable, heat affected zone cracking can occur. Okay, in any metal, we usually have heat affected zone. There we have tendency to cracking. Okay, the weld metal solidification cracking is more likely in fully austenitic stainless steel. When you have lesser amount of ferritic phase in your austenitic stainless steel, then you have more tendency of cracking in the heat affected zone. Hence, you have to engineer alloy in such a way that you should have minimum of 5 to 10% of ferrite phase in the austenitic stainless steel. Okay, hence you can accommodate this hot cracking. Okay, or any weld imperfection can be accommodated by this ferritic phase during welding. And coming to the sensitization, preventing this distortion and cracking. Here, austenitic stainless steel is usually prone to greater thermal expansion. It is having a very good thermal expansion property than any other material. Hence, this ASS or austenitic stainless steel will tend to distort easily. It's very distortable. Okay, a current setting that is very high. If you set the current very high, or if the travel speed is very slow, then this distortion may occur. Distortion of cracking may occur, and the thermal expansion also occurs because of the heat affected zone on austenitic stainless steels. Okay, hence when weld cools slowly during thermal transfer to the surrounding material, it also leads to buckling also. Okay, usually ASS during welding, these are the three common problems that we face. Okay, since it is having very good thermal expansion, if the current set is too high, or if it is if your weld travel speed is too slow, then you usually tend to have this distortion and cracking problem, and that can be accommodated by joint design and clamping, which is a very good defense mechanism against austenitic stainless steel. You should have good clamping and joint designs. Okay, usually one way to limit this thing is by having V grooves or modified V grooves, U grooves or J grooves. Okay, if you have these type of grooves, then we can avoid this buckling and distortion during welding of austenitic stainless steels. And during welding, these are the common undesirable precipitates that we commonly encounter during welding of ASS. Okay, we usually get delta ferrite, carbon-rich precipitates, and brittle sigma phase while welding ASS. That is, these pictures are taken from SS316 welded pigs. Okay. And you can see here, as I told you, carbon-rich precipitates are usually occurring due to sensitization problem. Okay, it occurs because of the carbon which depletes the chromium region. When carbon depletes the chromium, reduces the chromium amount, we get this chromium carbide precipitate, and it reacts with the atmosphere in order to get the sensitization. Okay, and it usually occurs during the temperature below 800 degrees centigrade. That is around 500 to 700 degrees centigrade. This sensitization problem occurs. So welding temperature should be carefully monitored over here. And alternative way to avoid this formation of chromium rich carbides is by using argon gas shielding. Okay, by using argon gas shielding during the welding, we can avoid this deterioration property. You can avoid the undesirable precipitates during welding, and it is very easy to read also. In austenitic stainless steel, if you can very easily read the welds. Okay, if you have a good weld, then your weld will be straw colored. If you have having any carbide precipitates, then usually the weld color will be black, blue, or purple. If you are having any precipitation, the color will be changed in the weld. Okay, and the three main reasons, as I told you, for precipitation of this undesirable properties is too much heat generated during welding, or it may be due to low travels, and it may also be due to inadequate shielding. Okay, if you use argon gas shielding for welding of this ASS weldments, then you can avoid this formation of chromium rich precipitates, and you can also avoid the sensitization problem also. And coming to the activation energy, here we can find a refined window for grain size variance. You can see here, if you are having if you are annealing the samples from 1000 to 1100 degree, that you will have a refined grain window. Okay, minimum variance is noticed in the refined window. Okay, and this activation energy is usually calculated by DSC, that is differential scanning calorimeter. In order to get the stable or activation energy, we use this DSC. And for ASS, it is the activation energy required is around 1000 to 1100 degrees centigrade, where we get a refined window for getting ultimate tensile strength variance or grain size variance. And coming to the challenges in austenitic stainless steel research, grain boundary engineering for enhancing the performance parameters in various applications. This is one of the important challenges that we are facing in austenitic stainless steel research. And large size plate with minimum heat affected zone is another important area, and manufacturing robustness with the economics is also one of the important area that we can focus. Clean steel technology for thin sections, new generation stainless steels with superior corrosion resistance, aging management strategies for high temperature and long life applications, enhancing weld performance for hot cracking, intelligent remote welding, modeling of alloy development, surface engineering with novel alloys and cladding, high performance and cost effective new generation stainless steels. These are some of the areas that we can really look into ASS research. Okay, and coming to the future of manufacturing technology in with respect to austenitic stainless steel, manufacturing of components with stringent specifications is the major. And coming to the stainless steel industry, high quality stainless steels for newer products provides value addition and huge support potential. And coming to R&D for accommodation, accommodations, innovative R&D efforts for new types of SS through large-scale collaboration with research and academic institutes is essential. And synergy between global leadership and SS production and application has to be ensured to realize the benefits of industries and society. There should be a good synergy between global leadership in SS production and application has to be ensured to realize the benefits for industry and society. And these are some of the references for further study. Thank you for listening for the technical talk. If you have any queries.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Samant. We are having a few questions on the chat message box. One by one, we can go to the questions and you can clarify that.
Where can I get it?
We will be reading the questions.
We will read the questions.
Chat message box.
Just 1 second.
You can stop sharing the screen.
Yes. Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of questions are there by the participants. We will try to answer as many as possible within the stipulated time. We need to complete it because we have another from IIW also. Okay.
Okay.
Or Mumbai branch at 4:30. So we will try to clarify as quick as possible. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. It's really a wonderful presentation on austenitic stainless steels. Just 1 second. Which grade?
Which austenitic grade?
Which austenitic steel grade is highest ductility and elongation after welding? Which is the best grade for good ductility even after welding?
Usually 316 and super austenitic stainless steels is having good ductility and welding. If you need superior corrosion resistance and good properties as well as, you can go for super austenitic stainless steel. But the cost is a bit on the higher side for super austenitic stainless steel.
Okay, thank you.
316 is the best alloy for ASS.
Okay. The next question probably I will try to answer. That is stainless steel materials recommended for ultrasonic? Yes. Stainless steels, of course, there are certain difficulties while carrying out ultrasonic testing because of inherent non-homogeneity and the grain structure. So normally we can do solution annealing and probably surface texture. The internal structure can be slightly improved, but generally austenitic stainless steels especially are not much suitable for ultrasonic testing, particularly higher thicknesses. So for that, we need to go for alternate NDT methods like any other method. But usually stainless steels are not recommended for ultrasonic testing, even though it is possible to be done at lower frequencies. Normally 0.5 to 1 megahertz we can try to do, but there will be loss in sensitivity. In terms of detectability, it is going to decrease. But nevertheless, instead of leaving the component like that, we can try. But higher thicknesses generally very difficult, but we can try some solution annealing or any other process and can establish the backwall echo. But many times it is difficult to carry out ultrasonic testing of austenitic stainless steels especially, right?
Yes.
The question is clarified to the admin. Someone has requested for this question. And austenitic stainless steel 316L is used in bioimplants of human body. Is there any specific surface processing required for corrosion resistance in human body? This is
Yes, sir. Yeah. It is required. Is actually required. Usually, nitriding is also being done. Other surface treatments should also be done. But nowadays, titanium alloys has been replacing the A316 alloys because of the lifetime. A lifetime of the A316 is limited to 3 to 5 years. Now, titanium alloys are being used for bioimplants, which is usually having a lifetime of around 10 to 15 years. Okay, they are guaranteeing a minimum for 10 years. But the A316 alloys is now being a little bit eradicated from the bioimplants.
good. So I hope it is clarified. It is clarified. The next question is Mr. Abhottama. That is, what is the reason for reduction of ductility in stainless steels after welding? Which is the best method of welding from ductility point of view?
From ductility point of view, we can the choosing of the filler metal is very important. Say for 316, you usually choose 308 filler material in order to increase the ferrite number. Ferrite should be accommodated for 316 alloy because the ferrite phase is very less in the austenitic stainless steel. In order to accommodate that, we have to use different filler material. You should not use 316 filler material for 316. You should change the composition of the filler material.
Okay. Okay. I hope it is clarified. And the next question is, do bimetal welding, that is SS to MS, needs stress relieving?
Hello?
Yeah, the question is, do bimetal welding like SS to MS needs stress relieving?
I didn't get your question, sir.
I mean, dissimilar weldings are there from SS to MS. So does it require stress relieving?
Does it request?
Stress relieving after welding, maybe possibly.
It requires stress relieving because stress will be induced. It requires stress relieving. Annealing should be done.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is from Mr. Karan Modi. That is, any heat treatment cycle for austenitic stainless steels for grain refining and stress relieving, that is the case of welding, other than solution annealing. Do you have any process, doctor?
No, sir. Solution annealing is only process. There is no other process for grain refinement.
Okay, so the next question is, does corrosion resistance affect by the friction processing in stainless steel 316L?
Does corrosion?
Corrosion resistance affect by friction processing in 316L, maybe friction welding, I hope so.
No, sir, no. Sir.
Okay. So how far N helps in preventing pitting corrosion?
Sir, can you repeat the question?
Nitrogen helps in preventing pitting corrosion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It usually helps in providing the passive film. It gives the strong passive layer. If you add nitrogen in austenitic stainless steel, if the nitrogen coloring element is more, then the pitting corrosion is greatly improved because of the strong passive layer formed on it.
The next question is, which grade of austenitic stainless steel gives higher weld efficiency, and why by physical metallurgy?
316. 316 usually gives good welding performances, and it's also having good resistance to stress corrosion cracking also, 316.
Okay, thank you. And how to reduce heat affected zone in stainless steel welding? Any specific
usually we
to reduce the heat affected zone?
Only by using the shielding gas, we can reduce the heat affected zone. That is by using argon shielding gas, we can reduce the heat affected zone.
Okay. Is it recommended to add O2 gas particles in argon gases? I hope so, for better weldability. Yes.
Argon plus O2.
I think it's argon gas.
Yeah.
No, argon plus O2.
Argon. It's better to have O2. It's recommended, it's highly recommended.
Okay, good. The next question is again solution annealing, that is 1050 degrees centigrade soaking followed by very rapid cooling. Ideally, water quench will eliminate all residual stresses while avoiding sensitization. But is rarely practical on welded assembly. That's perfectly right. That's difficult even to carry out. The alternate is to select more resistant, that is molybdenum bearing grade type 316 is better than 304 or 321. What is your view on this, Dr. Shaman?
Yes, sir. As I told you, 316 the best austenitic alloy. Usually, we cannot eliminate the embrittlement during welding because of the sigma phase formed during welding. We cannot eliminate that. By using this molybdenum rich 316 alloy, it's better to have more resistance. It will get good resistance for embrittlement if you have more molybdenum content in your alloy element.
The next from Professor Shantanu Das, who is currently the editor for the Indian Institute of Welding Journal, is having one question, that is, please discuss about delta ferrite and sigma phase formation in austenitic stainless steels, how they are formed. Can you just brief it a little, Dr. Shaman? Delta ferrite and sigma phase formation in austenitic stainless steels. Can you just highlight brief points on that? Dr. Shaman? Is there? Audio is not connected. Yeah, I think audio, some issue is there. So,
Dr. Shaman?
Yeah, Dr. Shaman, are you there?
No.
I think some network issue. Yeah. So
Hello.
There is some network issue with the speaker. Just 1 second. He'll try. He is trying to join. Just before the speaker comes in, I request all of you to please switch on your video so that we can have one snapshot as a record. Wherever possible, please switch on your video. We'd like to have one
video.
Snapshot. Keep the audio. Please mute it. Audio, please mute it. We'd like to have a small snapshot. Please mute your audio. I request once again, mute your audio. Yeah, the just speaker has come in. Yeah, I'm just going to take your screenshot, whoever is available. I don't want to take much time here. So I request all of you to smile little. Just 1 second.
Screenshot.
I'm taking a screenshot. All of you, please switch on your video wherever it is possible.
Switch on.
Yes, just wait. Just 1 second. All of you, I request, please switch on your video wherever possible. I'm taking. Yeah, thank you all for this. I mean, one last question from Dr. Shantanu Das, that is on sigma phase, how it is being formed. Delta and sigma phase, how it is formed in stainless steels. Can you just highlight it, sir, briefly, Doctor? Again. Again, we lost the connection with him. Now I request, yeah, logged in.
1 second, you try. Or you can,
Just one. Just one second.
ಕಳವರ್ಸೋದಾನೆ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡೋಸ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಓಹೋ ನೀನ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಲ್ವೇನ
ಬೇಡ ಬೇಡ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್
Please mute your audio. I request all the participants once again, please mute your audio. One last question we want to take, that is how this, can you explain about the delta ferrite and sigma phase formation in stainless steels? The speaker is in audio, so you can just listen.
Go ahead. Doctor, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Delta ferrite usually comes into picture when we heat treat the sample above 1200 or 1250 degrees centigrade. If the welding temperature is too high, then we come across this delta ferrite. And sigma phase is a brittle phase which we when we have the welding when we have the operating temperature around 800 to 900 degrees centigrade, which is a embrittlement phase. It is a brittle phase. It is an undesirable phase also during welding, and hence the welding temperatures during the welding of austenitic stainless steel should be chosen in such a way that it should be less than 800 degrees centigrade, so that these undesirable phases can be eliminated.
Okay. So I hope that clarifies. Over the phone, slightly there is some disturbance even in terms of voice. Because of the time constraint, we just want to go for the next final agenda. That is, I request the chairman to.
Yeah. I request Koteshwar Rao sir to speak about the session.
It is very good session, and it gave a lot of information. I have a lot of queries, but I think time being is capacity. So I would like to contact the professor in person afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our branch treasurer to propose a vote of thanks, Mr. Venkatesh.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sir, good evening all. Once again, this is Venkatesh.
Yeah, you can switch on your video, sir. You can switch on your video, please.
Yeah.
If possible. Yeah.
Now, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, perfectly, sir.
Yeah. So, good evening once again to all, and an excellent presentation by Dr. Shemant V. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your knowledge, informative knowledge sharing session on stainless steel, duplex stainless steel, and austenitic stainless steel, effects of alloying elements, and then in stainless steel, and then effects in temperature on the stainless steel, weldability of austenitic stainless steel, and thanks a lot for sharing. Very knowledgeable data on welding. Thank you so much, sir. And I would like to thank our headquarter member, Mr. Shantanu Das, for his active participation, and our branch members. It was told that it is overwhelming response, and then many of our own committee members could not join. And anyway, thank all of them for showing an eagerness in joining the session. And I thank my vice chairman, Mr. Reddy, and our chairman, Mr. Shivkumar, and past chairman, Mr. Ravi Kumar, and our advisor, on whom today the branch is running with the full strength, and then who's been the backbone and pillar of our Bangalore branch, Mr. Biligiri Vasu, and also our participants from our IAW HO Calcutta, and from other branches of our IAW Institute. And then our senior most person who shared his moment with us, Mr. Koteshwar Rao, and then Mr. Veda Prakash, and really the all active members. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time and being with us and spending your valuable time on during this session. We also would like to see you. This kind of program keeps repeating in our IAW. We look forward for your active participation in future as well, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because of the overwhelming response, we could not able to admit some of the participants beyond 100. We regret for that, but we already recorded this video and we are going to share the link on YouTube. And in your contacts, anybody is there, you can request them to, view that video at their convenient time. Okay. So thank you all once again, and Mr. Shivkumar. Yeah.
Small announcement. Upcoming session, there is two sessions we have already planned. Warning signals from space about Earth. And second program which we have planned, specialization of electron beam welding. These are the two technical sessions will be upcoming sessions. We will be planning in the month of October. The dates will be shortly, we will be announcing in advance. And these are the two sessions which we planned. And members also, I request any of the topics, if you are preferring to have a technical talk, we can able to organize that program. I request the members to send a WhatsApp to us for organizing the session. And please share your feedback through WhatsApp about the session and about the activities which we are the IIW branch level. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kindly share it on Facebook also.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Definitely. Thank you, sir. Sir, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Mr. Shantanu Das, sir, BK Das, sir, everyone, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Samant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.